doing on the economic front. So, as I've told you last week, I left the diplomatic front of the trade war with the U.S. to the economic front. And in that sense, my job as the new Minister of Industry is to really work on the consequences of the U.S. tariffs and to make sure that we can continue to fight for Canadian workers, to make sure that we're in solution mode with businesses and their CEOs, and at the same time that we can continue to grow the economy. My three priorities are these ones. The first one is to make sure that we fight for the sectors that are the most affected by this trade war. So the auto sector, and I was just in Oshawa a bit earlier today at GM, meeting with management, but also meeting with the workers. I would like to thank all the people working on the lines that are making us so proud for their hard work, and we'll continue to fight for your jobs. Meanwhile, I also was in Quebec last week meeting with the hardworking aluminum workers, and I had many conversations also with CEOs of the sector, and same for the people working in the steel sector. And definitely my goal is to make sure that I can go and meet with people that are working either at Algoma or Rio Tinto or ArcelorMittal. So that's my goal. So this is the first priority, because of course these are the people on the front lines of this trade war. The second priority is really continuing to grow the Canadian economy at a time of geopolitical uncertainty. And so this is a huge challenge, but this is something I think that we can really continue to do, particularly in a couple of sectors. Definitely the defense sector, which will help our manufacturing sector. Definitely also through working on empowering AI, and at the same time in the energy sector. And finally, the third priority that I have is really attracting the best talent in the world. We have an opportunity that we've never seen since the Vietnam War to attract the best and the brightest, particularly coming from south of the border, and we will make sure that we seize this opportunity. So I'll do that in French now. Just give me a second as a proud francophone. Ça me fait plaisir d'être ici à Toronto pour travailler en tant que nouvelle ministre de l'Industrie. Je l'ai dit déjà la semaine dernière, j'ai quitté le front diplomatique pour aller vers le front économique de la guerre tarifaire qui a été lancée par les Américains. J'ai trois priorités dans ces circonstances-là. La première, c'est vraiment de continuer à défendre des emplois dans les secteurs qui sont particulièrement affectés par les tarifs américains, que ce soit le secteur de l'automobile, où j'étais un petit peu plus tôt aujourd'hui à Oshawa. Je tiens à remercier les travailleurs qui nous rendent fiers. Deuxièmement, le secteur de l'aluminium, où j'étais à Bécancour la semaine passée. Et finalement, dans le secteur de l'acier. Ma deuxième priorité, c'est vraiment de travailler pour créer de la croissance économique, même si on sait qu'il y a beaucoup d'incertitudes, d'insécurité un petit peu partout dans le monde. Et le Canada, on peut faire beaucoup de travail pour attirer ces investissements-là, attirer ces capitaux-là, pour créer des jobs chez nous. Je le vois dans trois secteurs en particulier. Le secteur de la défense, où on peut vraiment créer des emplois dans le secteur de l'aérospatial, de l'automobile, dans le secteur manufacturier. Deuxième opportunité, c'est vraiment en lien avec l'intelligence artificielle et finalement dans le secteur de l'énergie. Et finalement, je pense qu'il y a une opportunité qui est aussi grande que ce qu'on a vécu à l'époque lorsqu'il y avait la guerre du Vietnam pour attirer les meilleurs chercheurs américains. Et ça va être certainement mon opportunité, ça va être certainement ma priorité, et j'ai bien hâte de travailler avec le domaine scientifique, avec les universités partout à travers le pays pour attirer le meilleur talent. Alors, so, ready to take all your questions. Thank you.
Hi, Mr. Joly.
Hi.
Diane Campbell with CBC News.
Hi.
Before I ask the question, which is tangentially related, I'd like to ask you quickly about Israel. Israel is suggesting that there's a link between Canada, France, and the UK statement aimed at Israel and the Washington shooting. I'm wondering what you would say in response, and if you could respond in English.
So this is certainly an important issue. It's an issue that is being dealt by the Prime Minister and the Minister of Foreign Affairs, so I'll let them do their job. Donc ça, c'est certainement un enjeu très, très, très important, mais c'est un enjeu aussi qui est géré par le Premier ministre et par la ministre des Affaires étrangères, et je vais leur laisser faire leur boulot.
And my follow-up, the federal government has stopped its national EV rebates, the sales showing a softening of the EV market. Does the federal government have any plans to bring back its rebates to encourage people to buy? And is there any consideration to reduce tariffs against EVs made in China to make them a more affordable option for consumers?
So it's not a follow-up question, but it's another question, but I'll answer it. It is definitely our intent to make sure that Canadians can benefit from lower prices on electric vehicles. We said it in our platform that we would be bringing back the support programs for electric vehicles, so we will work on this issue. We know that it is important for our auto sector. It is also important to make sure that Canadians are able to have access to affordable electric vehicles. So this is something that I'll be working with the Minister of Finance on. Oui, c'est certainement une priorité. On l'avait mentionné dans la plateforme du parti lors des élections. Donc, notre objectif, c'est en effet de ramener les subventions pour les véhicules électriques. Et je vais travailler certainement avec le ministre des Finances sur cette question-là. C'est important, pourquoi? Parce qu'on doit, oui, soutenir le secteur automobile ici au Canada, mais en même temps, on doit être capable de continuer à soutenir les gens pour qu'ils puissent acheter un véhicule électrique à des coûts moindres. Merci.
With the consequences of the tariffs, what are you doing specifically to get rid of the tariffs on automobiles and steel?
Well, a couple of things. Of course, we're in negotiations with the Americans right now. The Minister of Intergovernmental Affairs, also in charge of U.S. trade, Dominique Leblanc, is in Washington as we speak. He's been in contact with many officials. But that being said, also, we've worked as well with the auto sector in Canada to make sure that we could find a way to protect the jobs in that sector that is really, really affected through a remission system. So that's what we've done. Now things are going very fast, and negotiations are happening by the hour. So that's the only thing that I can say.
Canada's countermeasures on automobiles include provisions about investments, footprint, and employment levels by the D3 in Canada. But we're still seeing production cuts, shifts being cut, layoffs at the D3.
So, a couple of things. I had last week a conversation with Honda regarding their investments in the electric vehicle sector. The CEO confirmed that no jobs would be cut and the conditions of workers would remain the same, and that there was still a commitment to the electric vehicle sector, but there is a softening of the demand. So that's just a reality, and it's linked also not only to the U.S. tariffs, but it is also linked to the fact that President Trump has decided not to go ahead with the Inflation Reduction Act, so the IRA that was put in place by President Biden that was providing for support for electric vehicles. So that's the first point. Second is, I spoke this morning with the president of Stellantis. He also assured me that there would be no job loss and the conditions of workers would remain the same. But indeed, there is also a softening in demand on the electric vehicle side. So my goal is to make sure that I have real conversations with these CEOs and that I can reach out to all the companies that have invested in that sector. At the same time, we've been very thorough in our way to invest by making sure that our support would be linked to production. So there is a good management of taxpayers' money, which for me is a complete priority. And so that's why my concern is much more about how do we create jobs and continue to invest in the future of the auto sector, while at the same time we're dealing with a lot of geopolitics and a lot of uncertainty. So I will definitely be able in a couple next day to not only talk to the Canadian CEOs, but also to talk to global CEOs to make sure that I can get the point of view from people in Japan, in Germany, and in the U.S. Yeah.
Hi, Anita from Joly.
Hi. Hi.
So my first question is to follow up on Stellantis announcement. I'm curious if you received any assurances from LG on their joint venture with Stellantis and Windsor and how that will be affected by the news of the delays today.
So I haven't spoken to LG yet. This will definitely be something I will be doing in the coming hours and days. Because obviously it is an important investment in Canada. At the same time, I think that the information I got from Stellantis is reassuring, but I'm a very pragmatic person and I'm not naive, so we need to continue to fight for these jobs. And the auto sector is under huge pressure because of the U.S. tariffs. So we will continue to get to a good deal with the Americans when it comes to trade and security. We will continue to invest in the future of the auto sector. And meanwhile, we know that Canada will be investing more than ever in defense. And these investments from the Canadian government must enable jobs in Canada. And I'm convinced that we have fantastic Canadian workers that are willing to put to be elbows up and to make sure that they can build for our men and women serving in Canada and abroad. And so this is an opportunity that we haven't seen since the Second World War to build in Canada and to help sectors that are affected by the tariffs. And so that's also why I was in GM in Oshawa, and that's also why I'm having conversations with many CEOs, as the Minister of Defense is also working on the biggest reinvestments to get to 2% and even more.
So to follow up on that,
Yep.
you've seen Canadian companies design an electric bicycle that are in the electric vehicle supply chain facing bankruptcy. So do you have any thoughts in your role as to how resources should be split between these multinational automakers and Canadian?
Well, we need to be able to address what's the consequences of President Trump not going ahead with the IRA. And that's having an impact definitely on decision makers in the U.S. But meanwhile, we need to make sure that we provide certainty in Canada. And I think that we can work a lot with countries such as countries in the EU, such as Germany, and at the same time, countries such as Japan and Korea. And so we want to make sure that we're useful, that while there is a pause, that we continue to have the right investments in these sectors, because ultimately we want to be there when consumers are ready to adopt these technologies and buy these new cars. And my message to Canadians right now is, please do the right thing and try to buy a Canadian-made car. When we go to the grocery store, we try to not buy American because we know it's the best way to put pressure and to help workers that are affected by the tariffs. Well, it's the same when it comes to buying a car.
How about we'll buy a car and food made from Canada once you start hiring fucking Canadians? How about that, bud? How about that?
Yeah.
You've now worked with both Mr. Trudeau and Mr. Carney. In your opinion, are their positions on Israel and the situation in Gaza different from each other?
So when it comes to the issue of Israel and Gaza, I know it's a very important issue, but I know the Prime Minister is on it, and I know the Foreign Minister is also working on it, and I have total trust in their work.
And quick follow-up, on that, do you have any response at all to the Israeli Prime Minister saying the leaders of Canada, the UK, and France are on the wrong side of history?
You've heard my answer already. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.